Good afternoon, everyone. We are back once again with another special afternoon edition of Her Story in the Making, presented by Women of Fantasy Football, powered by Fantasy Alarm and the Better Sports Network. And this is a show where we kind of go behind the scenes. We know that there are so many women in fantasy sports, and we want to get to know their story. We don't talk about fantasy, we don't talk about players, we talk about how you got started. And today we have a very special guest in Hannah Rowland. And Hannah's joining us from the UK, and we're so excited to have her today. Hannah, how are you doing? Looks like we might be having a little bit of technical difficulties with Hannah, but we'll get her back on shortly. Hannah works for 5 Yard Rush. She's a writer there. And this year, she's also helping coordinate the UK FFC, which is kind of like the UK's version of the Fantasy Football Expo. The UK has grown tremendously in their interest in fantasy football over the past few seasons. And it's really exciting to see the love of the NFL go international. So hopefully we have Hannah back on soon. She's having a little bit of technical difficulties. Technology's great. Don't we all love it? But there are a couple of things that Hannah does while we wait to get her back onto the stream. Um, Hannah is a musician, which we'll talk about. She also grew up in the UK and actually went to a Bengals game that we'll touch on with her father. She's huge in research. She actually was a finalist in the Scott Fish Bowl. And if any of you guys have played in the Scott Fish Bowl, you know how hard it is to do that with 14,000 something people participating in that league. So that's something that's very exciting. And we hope to get her back on here soon. In the meantime, we can talk about what we've got going on in a couple of weeks. A lot of you listen to SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, and some of the unsung heroes on that station are the producers. So, in on June 27th, we're actually bringing on one of those producers in Shannon Blunt. You know her from working with the Fantasy Alarm Show. Super excited to talk to her. It'll be another afternoon show. So we hope that you tune in for that. And we hope to get Hannah on here shortly. In the meantime, while we wait on her to get back online, let me just talk to you about the draft guide. We all know that NFL season is coming up fast and furious, OTAs, training camp, things like that. Fantasy Alarm is releasing our NFL draft guide on June 15th. So make sure that you guys stay tuned for that. And hopefully, we've got Hannah coming back on so we can try to talk to her. Hannah, how are you doing? I don't know if she can hear me. Can you hear me, Hannah? All right. Well, we'll try to keep working through these.
Hi, Britt. Thank you so much for having me. I sincerely apologize. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear
Perfect.
me?
Yes, I think we're just on a little bit of a delay. You're good.
Can you hear me?
Yes. You're good. We may need to just go audio only at the moment, just to make sure that we've got
Great. I
everything going.
sincerely apologize. I've got a interesting background.
Perfect. So since we're on a little bit of a delay, I just want
Any
to
better?
yes, we're just on a little bit of a delay. I think if we do audio only, that may help
Is that
the
working for you, Britt?
situation. Yes, I can hear you. So we will just dive into the questions if you're ready. Before we get into the football side of things, I want to touch on your musical talents because I think that's something that goes unnoticed when we're constantly talking football. So how did you get started playing the euphonium, and kind of what was that like, and what got you into brass band? Oh, we may have lost Hannah again. So I'm just going to keep talking about the NFL draft guide. We are going to have so many articles coming out over there. If you use promo code Howard, you get a 7-day free trial, and then you get 50% off your first 6 months of the all pro subscription, which gets you every single sport. You get football, you get NASCAR, you get MMA. All of MLB will be starting into the off season at that point. So you'll get all of that, plus updated rankings from Howard Bender, Jim Bowden, Adam Ronis, Andrew Cooper will be doing rankings this year. It's just going to be a lot of information, and we hope that you check that out. Um, we are also partnering with Underdog. We are full on into best ball season. Um, Use promo code Fantasy Alarm for a 100% deposit match up to $100. Get started drafting that. Best Ball Mania 4 still has a ton of openings, and it's $3 million to the first place winner. So you should go in. Um, and I think we're going to try to get Hannah back here. Apologies for all the technical difficulties. Hannah, can you hear me? Not sure she can hear me or if we're on a delay. Okay, so we're just going to keep talking. So, Hannah, let me pull up a little bit of her story, and I'll just kind of read it out for you guys while we're waiting on her to get connected. Uh,
Yes, I can, Britt.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. So we talked a little bit about growing up in the UK and what it's like watching football when it's not one of the main sports over in the UK. What was that like, and how did you get involved and get into football? I don't know if she can hear me. So let me just pull up a little bit of what Hannah sent to me. Um, I know that she went to a Cleveland or a Cincinnati Bengals game with her dad. Um, it was a London game in 2016. Um, and she took her father there for his birthday, and her fandom really started from there. Um, she only started playing fantasy in 2021, which is crazy considering that she was a finalist in Scott Fishbowl, like we mentioned. She's obviously knows what she is doing. She loves to research, loves statistics, and loves strategy. And as with most of us, she was only planning to do one league that year, but ended up doing 30 across different formats. And if any of you guys have participated in multiple leagues, you all know how hard that is to keep that going and keep going with that. Um, Her favorite things about fantasy is all the strategy and research that goes into it. Um, and then she started posting her research on Twitter, and that's how she got involved and got approached to write for 5 Yard Rush. She actually just started co hosting the Dynasty show. So if any of you guys are fans, let's tune in there and check out all of her work over there. Um, and through all of those 30 leagues that she joined, she got to know people in the UK fantasy community. Some of the guys in the UK fantasy community, as we mentioned before, set up the UK FFC, which is similar to the Expo in the UK. And their very first event was last season. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall over there because everybody in the UK that I've interacted with through Warrior Bowl and things like that are so fun to talk football with. Um, and this year, Hannah is actually going to be organizing this year's event that is next month. So we're looking forward to seeing all of that. Um, Her favorite team is the Bengals. And this is a funny story. I was hoping that she would get to tell it, but I'm just going to try to do the best I can. Apparently, when the Bengals were in the Super Bowl in 1989, she was two and was running around the room chanting Bengals, Bengals. So it's very appropriate that her first NFL game that she took her father to was the NFL or was the Bengals in London in 2016. And you know, when you become a Bengals fan at 2, when that just runs in your blood, you can't really follow another team. Um, and she says, even though it was miserable as Bengals fans for some time, but now you guys have Joe Burrow, you've got Jamar Chase, you've got T. Higgins. It's a great time to be a Bengals fan now. She also plays a fantasy or a euphonium, which, if you guys don't know, is a baritone. Um, It's a brass instrument, kind of similar to a trombone, and she's in a band, which is really cool, and we hope that we get her back on here, to talk. So, I think we're trying to get her again. Hannah, can you hear me? I don't know, but we will try it. So there, while we're waiting to get Hannah back on, there is some news in the NFL going on today. Um, it is mandatory minicamp starting in a couple, I guess, this week for the 49ers, the Cowboys, and 7 other teams. I think that we'll learn a lot more about what's going on with the quarterback situation in San Francisco once these mini camps start. How does Trey Lance look? How is Brock Purdy's rehab progressing? How does Sam Darnold look? I think that that quarterback room is so mingled and so discombobulated that we don't really know who the starter is going to be in that offense. And this week will give us a lot of clarity. There's also rumors of Dalvin Cook going to Miami. When Miami starts minicamp this week, is Dalvin Cook going to finally get traded and show up there? Um, and how will that affect that committee of running backs that are already there? We've already got Jeff Wilson, we've got Raheem Mostert, and then they drafted Devon Achane. And then if you throw Dalvin Cook into the mix, how is that going to affect Miami's offense? I think that they will be pretty much unstoppable, but for fantasy purposes, that is going to be a mess trying to figure out who is going to go and get the ball from week to week. The Browns also have questions. They hired Jim Schwartz to be the defensive coordinator this offseason. And the Browns defense, although they do have several big name key pieces, didn't exactly look the best last year. Schwartz is coming in and he's implementing a new scheme across the defensive line that's probably going to free up players like Miles Garrett, along with new additions Darius Smith and Dalvin Tomlinson. So that's going to be very interesting. And now something additionally that I am very excited to talk about is Traylon Burks and can he make a second year leap in that Tennessee offense? They didn't go out and get anybody in free agency. It's basically just him and Chigakonkwo. And now you've got Ryan Tannehill presumably coming back healthy, but Will Levis is on his heels. So can Traylon Burks stay healthy and make that second year leap with that target share is something that I'm very excited to see. Um, there's also the uh, issue of Jimmy Garoppolo's left foot injury. Is he going to be on the field or is it going to be somebody else? Are they going to outright release him? That's something that we'll get a little bit more clarity on. Um, Dallas, their tight end room, drafting Luke Schoonmaker in the second round. You've got Jake Ferguson and Peyton Hendershot. How is that going to shake out? So we'll also see some things with that. We're still trying to get Hannah to come on right now with her connection. But we'll just keep talking a little bit about the upcoming mandatory OTAs. Another storyline that we've kind of been keeping our eye on throughout the season is Sam Howell in the Washington Commanders offense. Is he the team's QB1? Eric Bieniemy came over, who, as many of you remember, was the Chiefs' X factor in that offense. Can he get second-year quarterback Sam Howell up to the level of a starting quarterback, or is Jacoby Brissett possibly going to take over, who looked very good coming in and replacing Deshaun Watson during the suspension last season? And then we have the Detroit Lions, which is something that I am very excited about after their huge uh, Hard Knocks campaign last season. They were the team that we loved. Um, Now they brought in Sam Laporta, they brought in Jahmyr Gibbs. It's something that I'm very excited to see how they fit into this new offense. And along with the suspensions of several of their wide receivers, how is that room going to shake out? Um, if you guys have any questions that we want to talk about or answers, let's throw them into the chat and we can try to go from there. We'll just make this a fantasy football show for today. Um, the Seahawks are also another interesting team that start mandatory mini camp this week. A lot of people are taking Jackson Smith and Jigba over Tyler Lockett, thinking that he is going to be the guy and Lockett is going to get phased out. I don't necessarily think that that is the case so far this season. I think that Smith and Jigba, along with a lot of rookies, have to learn the playbook. They've got to learn the formation and the scheme. And so I think that Lockett is probably going to be fine. Um, I see all you guys in the chat. Hi, Faith. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Matt. Hey, Kevin. Hey, Troy. Hey, Brooks. We love having you in the chat. Apologies for the technical difficulties, but we just monitor and adjust. That's what we're going to do. With all of these mini camps happening, I'm going to ask you guys in the chat, what is something that you guys are interested in seeing? Um, is there anything that y'all are interested in? Some questions that y'all need answered? I would very much like to know what you guys. Oh, Bob, thank you so much. Coming around on Burke slowly but surely. You know, if it wasn't for the injuries last season, I really do believe that he could have been good. You don't put up those numbers in the SEC on a rebuilding offense like he did as the number one without being good. So I know that he can come on, and I think he's being drafted entirely too low at his ADP right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if he got a 35% target share in that offense. I think we're going to bring somebody on who's very special. Howard, jump on in here. Yes.
What's up?
We have the ringer, we have the Roto Buzz guy here, saving me from just rambling on about training camp. So, I've kind of talked about all the mandatory mini camps that are starting this week and some of the storylines. Is there one storyline in particular that you're interested in?
Is there one storyline? Well, first and foremost, did we start the show wishing you a happy birthday and asking you how your birthday was? I don't know if we did or not, but nevertheless, the stories right now that are probably, I mean, obviously the biggest stories right now is where's Dalvin Cook going to go, and is he going to land somebody, somewhere else? And is DeAndre Hopkins going to either A, go backwards to Houston, or B, is he going to turn the Cleveland Browns into what could be one of the most dominating offenses, like elite offensive line? Could you imagine that? Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins, splash in Elijah Moore, David Bell. Who's the other? Oh, they Cedric Tillman. And then, I wouldn't be the original OG tight end whisperer if I didn't say David Njoku.
I was going to call you out on it if you didn't. You have to bring him up. I mean, you were touting him all year last year, and I think that the week that he blew up, I was actually playing against you in the Kings Classic. So I was very mad at you about that. But, that's what happens when you're good at this game. You crush people who don't know as much. So let me ask you this about Hopkins. Have you heard about his list of preferred quarterbacks that he wants to play with, and Deshaun Watson not being on that list? Is that a little bit of a red flag to some extent? I think so as well. Not only does he want a huge contract when he's in his 30s and he's an aging receiver, he's had suspensions, he's had health issues, and now you want to be picky on the quarterback that you play with. What do you think about that?
Well, I'll tell you what, who's on his list before I really kind of stress about the fact that he's doing that. Not that I have too many shares of DeAndre Hopkins in best ball right now. Oh, but who's on his list of preferred QBs? This is going to be gross, isn't it?
Oh, no. I think that they are very elite. He named 5. It's Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Justin Herbert. And several of these teams have already said that they are out on him. The Chiefs and Bills don't have the cap space to sign what he wants for a contract. Don't really think that the Eagles really need much. Just going to throw that out there. The Chargers already have an aging quarterback room or a wide receiver room. So why would they take another one? And then, Lamar Jackson, they just spent all that money on Odell Beckham. So realistically, what What do you think is his motivations in making those kind of demands?
Huh. I don't know, to give more validation to the Gen Z phrase "no cap," because none of these teams can do any of that. I mean, that's quite a. I'm not going to say it's an obnoxious list, but it really is kind of an obnoxious list. I mean, to sit there and say my preferred quarterbacks are the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Well, yeah, okay, fine. That's, I mean, listen, if I could, coach any team in the NFL, I want the team that's going to be the easiest to reach the Super Bowl. Like, I mean, that's kind of, to me, it's a little on the lame side. How about that? I think that naming, like, if you snuck in anybody, and I mean anybody, if you were just like, hey, you know what, I'd really love to play with Tua, or I'd really, what, I think I saw Bryce Young in college, and I'd really like to, be a part of, his development. So, again, it's DeAndre Hopkins with, a me first attitude, and again, it's a paycheck player. And if that's really the case, then that's disappointing.
And with that me first attitude, if you're showing that off before you even get signed anywhere, can you imagine what kind of cancer that would be in a locker room situation? So I think he's turning off a lot of potential suitors by making those kinds of demands. It's just really puzzling to me. Of course, Colby thinks that Hopkins wants to come back to Houston and play with CJ Stroud, the resident Houston's fan, if you guys don't know. Kevin with the Lions, I actually don't disagree with that. I think with all the suspensions and all the problems that they have, and the Lions have done a pretty good job with their cap space as well. Where, so I'll just throw this out there. Where do you think the ideal landing spot for Hopkins would be?
Well, again, I honestly do believe that the ideal landing spot is Cleveland. I think that is just, it's a situation. I love Kevin's call for Detroit, because they do, I mean, you want to lock that guy down, especially if Jameson Williams, who was supposed to be their be all end all, is now out for the first 6 weeks of the season. It definitely, it opens it up. I want DeAndre Hopkins to go somewhere where he can be that number 1 target, possibly as a number 2 target. Like, I mean, let's just say, for example, it's not going to happen, but like if you were to go to Minnesota, right, and you could have Justin Jefferson on one side and DeAndre Hopkins on the other, and then all of a sudden you've got a 1 and a 1A as opposed to a 1 and a 2. So, I mean, ideally as a fantasy owner, I just want Hopkins to go to wherever he's going to see the majority of targets. And yeah, I mean, listen, Houston, he goes to Houston, he's going to get force-fed all those targets. And whether there's double coverage or the top corner is on him, it doesn't matter. You still have to, feed him all of the, all of the work.
Absolutely. I want to ask you one more quick question before we go here in a few minutes. With all the Jimmy Garoppolo talk, isn't that a mess? And so Devontae Adams is still getting drafted at the end of the first, beginning of the second. If Jimmy, I mean, first off, I'll phrase it this way. Are you comfortable drafting him there with all the uncertainty? Second, if Garoppolo is dropped or traded or just completely phased out, where does that leave Adams?
It's a really tough spot. Like, the fact that Josh McDaniels really doesn't have a backup plan. I mean, his backup plan is Brian Hoyer. And no, I'm sorry. Maybe Hoyer understands the offense and the scheme and the verbiage that you want to use, but he's still Brian Hoyer. And that's like, I mean, it doesn't sit well with me. And now it's bumming me out about Devontae Adams, because here's a guy who can be an absolute, slate breaker for you if he's got the right rapport. But, a hobbled Jimmy Garoppolo, that's a lot of quick passes to Hunter Renfrow and Jacoby Myers. That's not, waiting for Devontae Adams to run his route. So, I mean, yeah, this whole situation scares the bejesus out of me, because, you're losing out, if you've got, I mean, think about it here. If you wanted to draft Josh Jacobs, if they've got Brian Hoyer, then, you're probably stacking the box a little bit more often than you are, with like a normal QB under center. So, yeah, this is a huge bummer for the Raiders, and I'm definitely lowering my expectations here for Devontae Adams. It's kind of depressing.
It is depressing because he is perennially one of the best receivers in the entire league. And then I think that he was kind of throwing in the towel by that statement that he made about a month ago, being like, I already did it without Aaron Rodgers. I don't need to prove anything else. Like, that tells you enough about the state of this offense that is super scary.
Well, he already had those comments that said, he's like, I really don't like the direction this offense is taking.
Yeah. And that's scary. Like, mini camp OTAs haven't even started and you already don't like the direction. Like, huge red flag, multiple red flags, like train station crossing red flags. So let me ask you one more quick question before we end it here. How do you feel about the 49ers quarterback room? And who do you think is actually going to emerge as we see a little bit more in OTAs and minicamp?
I mean, I'm rooting for Trey Lance. I really am. I just, I like the mobile QB. I like the style there. To me, it sets up better things for the 49ers offense. It allows you to do more things that Kyle Shanahan likes to do. RPOs with McCaffrey and with Deebo Samuel. I think that's, you set Purdy in there and he's more of that pocket passer type guy. Can he roll out and maybe extend plays a little bit? Yeah, sure. But I think Lance is the more dynamic guy that we're looking at. Shout out to the football IQ of Brock Purdy, but there's a reason that he was Mr. Irrelevant and half a season playing under Kyle Shanahan when Christian McCaffrey's your top running back and you've got Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. It's not really tough to do.
Yeah, I think Trey Lance and his hairline deserve a second chance, a fair chance. God bless all the memes that we're going to get in this off season. But Howard, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to talk football with you all the time. We hope to get Hannah back on here soon. And don't forget to join us on June 27th at 2 p.m. Eastern, where we have Shan Blunt. So we hope to see you there.